The hangar still smelled of scorched metal, smoke curling lazily from the outer doors where the enemy attack had been repelled. Despite the damage, Evan worked quickly, repairing minor circuits and recalibrating the Queen's armor. The chest plate, though partially stabilized, was far from complete. Sparks flew occasionally from exposed wiring, and the faint hum of energy conduits echoed through the empty spaces. Saralyn stood nearby, observing him with a steady gaze, her long white hair falling over her shoulders and her crown slightly askew from the battle. Even in the midst of danger, her posture remained regal, commanding, and yet there was a subtle softness in her eyes as she watched him work. Evan had never encountered someone like her. She was a ruler, a warrior, and a being of immense intelligence, yet she treated him with a rare kind of respect. He adjusted the energy stabilizer, his fingers steady despite the adrenaline still coursing through his veins. Every movement mattered. One wrong touch could send the armor into total failure, leaving the Queen vulnerable. He had learned that day, under fire, that his focus and human instincts could make a difference in ways even the most advanced alien soldiers could not. "Careful with the upper servos," Saralyn said softly, her voice almost blending with the hum of the machinery. "They react to my biosignature. Too much force could overload the system." Evan nodded. He was beginning to understand that this armor was more than protective plating. It was almost a living extension of her. The sensors, stabilizers, and energy conduits responded not just to mechanics but to her biology. It was a delicate balance, and he respected it fully. As he worked, the sounds of approaching footsteps echoed through the hangar. More of her soldiers returned, scanning for survivors and evaluating the state of the defenses. They paused when they saw Evan standing so close to their Queen, repairing her armor while she observed. Whispers spread through the ranks. Humans were often dismissed as weak, fragile, or incapable of understanding the advanced technology of the Velnari. Yet here was one human, steady-handed and calm under pressure, actively saving the life of their ruler. Some soldiers could hardly believe their eyes. Evan's concentration was broken by a sudden vibration through the floor, a warning signal. The enemy had not retreated entirely. A small strike team had infiltrated the palace again, attempting a surprise attack. The Queen's eyes narrowed and she moved immediately to the defensive position, her energy blade humming with faint light. "Stay close," she said, her voice low but commanding. "They are faster than before." Evan adjusted a panel on the chest plate, ensuring the energy conduits could handle increased strain. "I'm right here," he replied, his own pulse quickening. They moved together, weaving through corridors filled with smoke, sparks, and scattered debris. The strikes came fast and precise, testing both the Queen's skill and Evan's ability to adapt. When they reached the main control chamber, the enemy commander appeared, a tall, imposing figure from Saralyn's own race, his armor gleaming under the flickering lights. He sneered at the sight of the Queen and then at Evan. "A human guarding the Queen?" he said, voice dripping with contempt. "Pathetic. You will not survive this day." Evan's heart beat faster, but he did not flinch. "I may be human," he said steadily, "but I'm not afraid to protect what's worth saving." His words, simple but firm, seemed to hold weight even against the alien commander's sneer. The commander attacked, energy blade flashing in swift arcs. Saralyn met his strike with precision, deflecting his blows while Evan adjusted her armor, reconnecting circuits that sparked under strain. He moved faster than he thought possible, guided by instinct and the urgency of the moment. Each adjustment could mean the difference between life and death, and he never hesitated. The fight escalated. Sparks flew, energy shields flared, and the corridor echoed with the clash of metal and the hum of plasma. Evan stabilized a critical power conduit in the chest plate, just as the commander swung at Saralyn again. She deflected the blow and, with a swift counterattack, struck the commander's armor, sending him staggering backward. "You've improved my armor," she said quietly, almost as an observation rather than a command. "But your courage? That is what has saved me." Evan's hands worked tirelessly, rewiring circuits and stabilizing energy flows as Saralyn fought. He had never imagined himself standing beside a Queen in battle. Yet here he was, not just surviving but making a real difference. The corridors were filled with smoke and flickering lights, yet he focused solely on her armor, on her safety, on keeping her alive. Finally, the commander faltered. Saralyn's blade struck a precise point on his armor, disabling his energy shields and forcing him to retreat. The remaining strike team, seeing their leader defeated, withdrew as well. The immediate threat ended and silence settled over the hangar once more. Smoke drifted lazily from the walls, the air thick with the scent of scorched metal. Saralyn turned to Evan, her expression calm but tired. "You risked much today," she said, her voice soft. "Most would have fled, most would have hidden. Yet you stood with me." Evan wiped sweat from his brow. "I did what had to be done. You're the queen. I couldn't let anything happen to you." For a moment there was quiet between them, a pause that felt heavier than any battle. The queen studied him, her eyes searching his face as if trying to understand the human who dared to stand beside her. Then she nodded, a small, almost imperceptible gesture that spoke volumes. "You have earned my trust, Evan, not just as an engineer, but as someone I can rely on in ways no one else has ever proven." Her voice was soft, yet carried authority that made even the returning soldiers pause. Evan felt a warmth in his chest he had not expected. Trust from a queen in a galaxy far from Earth was no small thing. And yet it was not only the trust, it was the bond that had begun to form. Born of shared danger, mutual respect, and the quiet understanding that some connections transcend species, worlds, and even centuries. The soldiers returned fully now, securing the hangar and assisting with repairs. They looked at Evan with new eyes, some nodding in acknowledgement of his courage and skill. The queen, despite her exhaustion, allowed a small smile. It was the first human smile she had returned, subtle but genuine. Evan finished the final adjustments on the chest plate. The armor was functional again, though still partially unfinished. Sparks flickered briefly, then stabilized, the systems humming in perfect sync. Saralyn flexed slightly, testing the response of the plating. It held perfectly. "You have done well," she said softly, her eyes meeting his. "More than well. You saved my life today." Evan, though tired, allowed himself a small smile. I was just doing my job, Your Majesty. I would do it again. For you, for the palace, for anyone who needs me." Saralyn's smile grew slightly, a rare, quiet warmth that seemed almost human. "Perhaps one day you will show me Earth," she said thoughtfully. "There is much I wish to understand about your world. Music, oceans, cities, and humans themselves. Perhaps you can teach me." Evan's eyes widened in surprise, but he nodded. "I'd be honored, Your Majesty." Night fell across the palace, and for the first time in centuries the Velnari queen allowed herself a moment of peace. The alarms were quiet, the corridors cleared, and the hangar, though scarred from battle, stood intact. Evan sat nearby, exhausted but satisfied, watching as Saralyn adjusted her crown and surveyed the hall. They spoke quietly, discussing minor repairs, stories from Earth, and the peculiarities of life on both planets. Laughter, soft and genuine, echoed through the metallic hall, mingling with the hum of repaired machinery. Guards watched, amazed, but they understood this was a moment unlike any before. A human, once dismissed as insignificant, now stood beside their queen, sharing in conversation and trust. Eventually, the night deepened. The palace quieted, the only sounds being the soft hum of machinery and the occasional clink of tools as Evan checked his work. Saralyn stood beside him one last time before leaving the hangar. "Next time," she said, her voice light but teasing, "when you repair my armor, don't forget the sensitive parts." Evan chuckled quietly, feeling a mixture of relief, pride, and a strange sense of belonging. "I will remember, Your Majesty," he replied. And so the human and the queen forged a bond not of duty or command, but of respect, courage, and understanding. In a galaxy of uncertainty, they had discovered something rare. Trust that could cross worlds, species, and danger itself. Outside, the first light of a new day crept across the hangar, reflecting off the repaired armor and the quiet figure of Evan. The galaxy remained vast, uncertain, and full of threats. But for now, the queen and her human mechanic had survived together. And for both of them, that survival had changed everything. In the silence that followed, Evan realized that this was more than a job. It was a responsibility, a privilege, and perhaps the beginning of something far greater than he had ever imagined. And as the queen disappeared into the palace corridors, her presence lingering in the quiet air, he knew that their bond, fragile, human, and extraordinary, would shape the days to come. For the first time, a human had proven that courage, skill, and trust could matter as much as strength, technology, or heritage. And in the heart of an alien empire, that proof would echo for years to come. The planet Arkan 7 had no mercy for the weak. Dust storms swept across jagged plains, and the horizon was a blur of rust-colored mountains. Mason wiped sweat from his brow as he repaired a freighter that had crashed near the outskirts of the mining colony. The work was dangerous, but it kept him alive and paid enough for him to survive. He was a human far from Earth, far from anyone who cared whether he lived or died, but he had learned to take care of himself. That evening, Mason noticed a strange shipment arriving at the scrapyard. It was a pod unlike any he had seen, sleek, polished silver with glowing symbols he did not recognize. The scavengers who brought it in whispered about its origin, claiming it was from the outer rim, long thought uninhabited by civilized life. Mason's curiosity got the better of him. He examined the pod and found a small hatch. He hesitated. Something about it felt alive, almost calling to him. With careful hands, he opened the hatch. Inside was a young woman. She was pale, with long, flowing hair that shimmered faintly even under the dim lights of the shop. Her eyes were closed and she seemed fragile, almost as if she might break under the weight of the world. Mason noticed a strange collar around her neck, engraved with symbols that looked like a royal crest. He had never seen anything like it. "Hey, are you okay?" Mason whispered, unsure if she could even hear him. The woman's eyes fluttered open. They were wide and violet, filled with confusion and fear. She stared at him, trembling. Mason stepped back slightly. He had never seen a human or alien like her. She had the soft, natural beauty of someone from another world, and yet something in her gaze spoke of sorrow and loss that felt almost unbearable. I don't know where I am," she whispered. Her voice was musical but weak, trembling like a fragile instrument. Mason's heart tightened. "You're safe here." "My name is Mason," he said gently. "I can help you." "Don't worry." She tried to speak again, but only a small whimper escaped. Mason knew she had been through something terrible. Carefully, he lifted her from the pod and carried her to a cot he had set up in the corner of the shop. He gave her water, some warm blankets, and food. She ate slowly, cautiously, as if every movement took great effort. Mason watched her, trying to understand who she was, where she came from, and why she had ended up on this lonely, dangerous world. Days passed. Mason learned that she could not remember much. She remembered flashes, palaces of shining metal, a voice that had called her Lyra, and the stars beyond the clouds. But nothing was clear. Her memory came in fragments like shards of glass. Mason named her Lyra, instinctively because it suited her delicate and mysterious presence. Even as her body regained strength, Mason noticed something extraordinary. One evening, while they were repairing a broken freighter together, a group of pirates attacked the colony. They wanted supplies, fuel, anything they could steal. Lyra, panicked and confused, screamed. Her voice carried across the air like a physical force. The pirates froze mid-step, their eyes wide with fear, unable to move or speak. Mason watched stunned. What just happened?" Mason asked, his voice low. Lyra's eyes widened in shock. I didn't mean to. I was scared." "You have power," Mason realized. "Something you don't understand yet, but you need to control it." He helped her hide while the pirates fled, murmuring among themselves that the human woman they had attacked had a power none could fight. After the attack, Mason decided he needed answers. He scanned the pod again, searching for any identification, any clues. Hidden in a compartment, he found a small device, a crystal disc engraved with the same crest around Lyra's neck. Mason ran the readings. His jaw dropped. The symbols matched the royal crest of the Lysari Empire, one of the most powerful civilizations in the galaxy. Many had believed the royal line ended when the young princess disappeared years ago. Mason looked at Lyra. Her eyes were wide and scared, but he saw hints of recognition when he mentioned the name Lysari. She whispered it, uncertain, almost afraid. Lysari? "Yes," Mason said softly. "I think you're their princess." Lyra's mind struggled to hold the thought. Fragments of memories returned. A palace with high silver walls, gardens that glowed under alien suns, and a fleet of ships that had carried her across the stars. She remembered the crash, the betrayal, and the cold emptiness of being lost in space. Tears filled her eyes. I was lost." Mason took her hand. "It's okay. You're safe now. I'll take you home." Lyra looked at him, unsure, terrified, but a glimmer of hope appeared. She trusted this human, the one who had found her and cared for her when no one else had. Preparing to leave was not simple. Arkan 7 had pirates, dangerous weather, and patrols that could stop them. Mason repaired an old ship he had kept for emergencies. He scavenged supplies, fuel, and weapons. Lyra learned quickly, absorbing information about star charts, navigation, and alien technology. Her natural intelligence and instincts were remarkable. Together, they planned a route to Lisari Prime, the capital of the empire she had once called home. As the day of departure arrived, Mason could see the fear and excitement in Lyra's eyes. "Are you ready?" he asked. I think so," she said, gripping his arm. "I see home in your eyes." Mason smiled, though his heart pounded. The journey would not be easy. Lisari Prime would not welcome a human, even if he was bringing back their lost princess. Political enemies, old betrayals, and rival factions might see him as a threat, not a hero. But he had promised Lyra safety. He would keep that promise no matter the cost. They lifted off from the dusty surface of Arkan 7, engines roaring, leaving behind the rough, unforgiving world that had been Mason's home for years. Lyra stared out at the stars, her memories flickering like distant lights, guiding her back to a life she thought she had lost forever. Mason focused on the controls, his mind racing with calculations, plotting a course across light years of empty space and danger. The journey was tense. Patrol ships and rogue pirates challenged them, and Lyra's powers grew stronger with each encounter. She could sense danger before it arrived, manipulate small bursts of energy, and even command attention with her voice. Mason was amazed. She was not just a princess. She was extraordinary, someone whose courage and strength could change the fate of an empire. One night, as they drifted through hyperspace, Lyra sat quietly, staring at Mason. Why are you helping me?" she asked. Mason shrugged, his eyes on the stars. "Because no one else would. Because it's the right thing to do, and because I believe in you." Lyra smiled faintly. It was the first time in years her lips had curved into anything resembling joy. She felt safe, something she had not felt since the crash. She realized that this human, so ordinary by every standard, had done what no one in her empire had managed. He cared for her without expectation, without fear, and without politics. The stars stretched endlessly before them, and Mason calculated each jump carefully, avoiding patrols and hazards. As days passed, Lyra's memories became clearer. She remembered her family, her court, the betrayal that had led to her disappearance. She began to understand the stakes. Returning home would not just reunite her with her mother, it would expose Mason to the dangers of politics, war, and distrust. Yet, she could not deny the bond they had formed. Mason had saved her life. He had brought light to the darkness she had lived in for years, and for the first time she believed that perhaps home was not just a place, but the people who truly cared for her. As they approached the outer system of Lisari Prime, Mason's heart tightened. He knew the real challenge was about to begin. The Empire had expected the princess to be lost forever. Now here she was, alive, with a human who had guided her back. Would they welcome them as heroes? Or would they see Mason as an intruder, a threat, a spy? Lyra placed her hand on his arm. "Whatever happens," she whispered, "we face it together." Mason nodded. Together. And with that, their small ship jumped into the atmosphere of the Lisari capital, shimmering above oceans of light and floating silver towers. The journey back to her mother and the dangers that awaited had begun. The stars above watched silently, witnessing a human who dared to change the fate of a lost princess and the empire that had forgotten her. And for Mason and Lyra, hope burned brighter than it had in decades, a light guiding them through uncertainty toward the reunion that would shake the foundations of a kingdom.